afternoon, everybody. This is Bhanumati from CII Institute of Logistics. CII Institute of Logistics is happy to bring together the industry thought leaders and participants to address this roundtable discussion titled Enabling Enterprise Resilience with the theme Digitalization in Redesigned Supply Chains. Whenever there are good innovations, new concepts, and strategies, we organize such roundtable conferences for the benefit of the industry. Today, we plan to deliberate in three broad areas to find solutions for immediate future. Framework for supply chain resilience, priority supply chain functions and challenges, reliable and flexible digital solutions. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Ganesh to chair the session. We have a very eminent panelist in this discussion. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. Ganesh to this gathering. Dr. Ganesh is a senior knowledge expert and global head of manufacturing and supply chain, known as MSC, Center of Competence at McKinsey & Company. He is having a total of 16 years of research and consulting experience in the supply chain domain. Dr. Ganesh has also worked in organizations like Tata Consultancy Services, IBM, IIT Madras, and LMW. Dr. Ganesh graduated in Mechanical and Production Engineering from Annamalai University, Chidambaram, with the university's first rank. He pursued his master's degree in Industrial Engineering at the National Institute of Technology, Trichy, and secured college first. He then moved to Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, where he obtained his doctoral degree in Logistics and Supply Chain Management. Thanks to Dr. Ganesh for his time and accepted to chair this session. Over to Dr. Ganesh. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Dr. Bhanumati. Thanks a lot. Hope I'm audible well, right? Yeah. So very good. I know the number is increasing from the participant side. So we'll get started. So very glad to meet all of you. So I think this particular virtual roundtable conference is very important because we are talking about resilience. How do we enable the resilience in the enterprise? A fantastic concept note which has come from CII with eminent panelists, great experts. Almost we have 5 experts who are actually going to share their experience, how they are managing resilience and how they are returning to the normal and how they are reimagining their business, right? So I think that's going to be a fantastic discussion we're going to have for the next 2 hours. And the sub-theme is digitalization in redesigned supply chain, right? So obviously the supply chain has to go very different and it has to be reformed. That's why the redesign the supply chain is also very evident in terms of sub-theme. So having said this, so thanks to CII and thanks to all the panelists and the experts who joined. Let me, introduce all the panelists to you and very rich experienced panelists. I'll go one by one. So we have Mr. Piyush Chauhan. So very welcome you, sir. So very glad to have you. He's a group CEO from Lulu Group International. He's a digital evangelist. Very great to have you. He's actually having a passion for transforming the business completely with the help of technology. With over a 2 decade of experience, he actually worked in global consumer as well retail companies. He's actually having a fantastic track record of delivering results and creative value across organization. And his vision is creating a innovation-oriented digital value chain and supply chain. And his passion is also working with startups and innovation-led companies has given him the edge to create the digital assets for the organization, right? And he kind of worked in latest technology like analytics, cloud, artificial intelligence, and has been actually a fantastic leader in digital transformation and a much wanted speaker at over 100 global events in the past 1 year, right? So he's also great to know as an avid writer, and his thought leadership is published in a lot of magazines and portal. Mr. Piyush, welcome. Very glad to have you in this panelist as a panelist, and would love to get your thoughts for sure. And I'll move on to the next panelist, who is Mr. Mrinal Chakrabarti. Welcome you, sir. He's a Chief Group CEO of DDDC Express Limited. Very glad to have you. Very rich experience, 25 years of experience in system design and IT implementation. I have extensive experience to kind of understand the critical business drivers in multiple markets and also industries and in business IT integration, right? So he comes with a fantastic hands-on experience in driving overall operations in sync with the macro organization plan. And he's also having a fantastic experience in budgeting, evaluation of technology, evangelization of technology, and implementation of end-to-end digital projects. Mr. Mrinal, very, very glad to have you in the panel. So would love to kind of hear your thoughts. Digital is important, and really glad to understand from your experience in DDDC how we are embarking the journey. And we have Mr. Tanmay Agarwal. Very glad to have you, sir. He's a VP at Global Business Services from Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverage Limited. So the moment he joined, I told him the background is awesome, and I think really excited to have some nice cool drink. Welcome you, sir, and really glad to have you. He's actually close to 23 years of experience in a cross-functional levels in supply chain. That's great. He kind of covered finance, commercial, business head roles with the profit and loss responsibility, and also played a fantastic operational and strategic levels. And in his early role, he kind of took up pioneering initiatives and implemented change, a lot of change management oriented initiatives, and he's made a great performance in his career, right? So he's also leading a large business service operation in the areas of finance, accounting, plan, source, deliver, all the three elements of supply chain. Apart from this, the order management, procurement, as well analytics, right? So, and he's actually aspiring, taking everything to global level and creating a best-in-class operation through a next generation practices. Tanmay, very glad to have you in the panel. Would love to kind of hear your thoughts from a consumer angle, how you are kind of handling the current resilience in supply chain. So we have Mr. Bharat Kumar, who is a solution evangelist from Zoho Creator. Welcome you, Mr. Bharat. He leads the marketing and customer experience initiatives of Zoho Creator. Almost 12 plus years of experience in service as a software, SaaS as well ERP technologies, especially focusing in supply chain, logistics, and retail. We're going to have a fantastic speech from Mr. Bharat as well. We will actually really waiting to hear your thoughts, Mr. Bharat. Welcome you for the panel. We go to the last, but not the least, Mr. Sayamdev Mukherjee. He's a Vice President, Planning and Control, United Breweries Limited. Very, very glad to have you in the panel. So he's a Vice President who actually take care of planning, control, as well as supply chain in United Breweries. He's a chartered and cost accountant with experience in multiple sector, FMCG, telecom, engineering. I think it's going to be great opportunity for us to hear his thoughts as he covers a lot of industries. And he also worked for Ericsson, Philips, ABB, ITC, and ICA India Limited. Very vast experience and varied experience. He has been nominated by his employer to attend leadership executive programs in Boston, IIMs, and ISB. So it comes with a very fantastic research and academic experience as well by hearing all this top academic institutions. And 5 times CFO role of honor winner by CFO India, including League of Excellence. I'm very, very glad to know this, Mr. Sayamdev. And he's a winner of FinThink Innovation Contest conducted by Deloitte India. And his expertise, not only in supply chain, is also having a fantastic experience in indirect taxes and management, and also accounting, right? So very, very glad, Mr. Sayamdev, to have you on the panel. I think very rich set of panelists. I think I'll not take much time. So the plan is below, right? So I'm going to share 2-3 minutes of some of the thoughts for resilience. I'm going to share my presentation, number 1. And after that, we will have Mr. Mrinal, who is going to talk about digitization of pickup and delivery solution, how we are actually going to do this in the COVID situation as a zero contact in mind. We're going to actually hear from him for maybe 8-9 minutes. Post that, we'll have Mr. Marat Kumar who actually come and talk about how we can leverage custom applications for supply chain success. And after that, around 3:35, 3:40, we will open for a fantastic panel discussions. So we have at least all the 5 people going to be there in the panel, and I have a set of questions in my mind to kind of ask the panelists to get their viewpoints, and from then we can move to a final Q&A session. I would request all the participants, you please use your Q&A. So you will see in the right hand side there are 2 platforms. One is chat, other is Q&A. Right? It would be helpful if you actually start asking your questions in Q&A. Don't wait till the end. So as you start hearing people, I would actually request you to kind of put your questions, ask your questions. So I would actually try to kind of collate those questions, and then finally I'll decide how do we kind of leverage the expertise on the table. It's very tough to kind of ask all the questions to everyone. So I'll probably try and see if you really wanted to ask a question to specific people, a specific person, you mention the name. Questions to Mr. XYZ, right? And if you have a generic question, then I'll probably decide ask that question to any one of the panelists, and obviously any of the panelists can also join and answer the question. So request to participants at the end in the Q&A session. I know it's very tough to have everyone to talk over Q&A, through a discussion mode. We'll try and see. We'll try and see whether it's possible to allow the participant to ask question. We will see around 4:40 whether it is feasible. If there is no much background noise, we'll actually open the unmute button and ask a participant to ask questions. If there is actually challenge, then we go back to the chat or Q&A mode itself, right? So don't put your questions in chat. Please put in the Q&A mode. That is a humble request. And at any point of time, Mr. Riyaz, if anything, any technology glimpse or any technology glitch happens, so please indicate to the panelist. That would be helpful, Riyaz, from your side. So I think without wasting time, I'll probably go and share my screen. 1 sec. Riyaz, you could see my screen, right? Yeah.
Yes,
very good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. So as you all know, the topic is enabling the resilience in the enterprise with the subtopic of digitalization. How do we redesign the supply chain? I'm going to cover only 2-3 slides, right? So when we talk about resilience, I just going to indicate we need to address 3 areas in order to build a resilient supply chain. I wanted to register this to all of the people in the panel as well as the audience, right? So as McKinsey, what we are trying to do, we are actually trying to suggest most of our clients in terms of 2 aspects. One is how do we prepare for a medium to long-term shift? That is one. And second is how do we manage the day-to-day operations, right? So these are the 2 dimensions. In the first dimension, preparing for a medium to long-term shift. Number 1, how do you going to adapt to a global uncertainty and changes? What are you going to do? That is one important element. And second element, how are you going to manage the growing vulnerabilities in supply chain, right? So these A and B are very, very important from preparation point of view for a medium to long-term shift. On a day-to-day operations, obviously you need to step back and optimize your existing flow of physical, right? Especially the physical flow of product, which is your supply network, which is your contract manufacturer, your suppliers, your logistics service provider. How are you going to kind of think through this day-to-day operation? So these 3 areas are very important. So when I say about these 3 areas, probably I want to touch upon at least one area, little deep dive, right? So when I talk about the archetype, right? This I think archetype would be very useful for everyone. This archetype, I think you can step back and think from your industry angle. What you see is in my slide, what you see is the x-axis is your in-country supply chain activity is low to high, right? So you decide how you are doing your supply chain activity, your in-country supply chain activity. Let's say it is between low to high, and your market access, it is between close to open. Now decide the different archetype, right? So in-country supply chain activity is actually very, very low, and market access is also very tough for you. Then try and actually do a fully separated supply chain, which is point number 2. If the in-country supply chain activity is very low, market access is open, but do a import, right? So import only, right? So likewise, there are 4 strategy people actually can think through when they are actually thinking about the adaptability, right? So import only, fully separated supply chain, that is second strategy. The third archetype strategy would be local sourcing for a local market, which is your partial separated supply chain. And fourth would be local sourcing plus exports. And finally, open for the final return, right? So step back, this archetype may not fit for every company. You need to devise your archetype for your company. That's the point which I want to highlight. So in order to bring the resilience, you need to step back and rethink the archetypes, rethink the strategy, which is very vital, right? So this is a thought starter which I wanted to give. Having said this, what I would say, quickly, probably one more slide. With that, what are the example lever to mitigate some of the vulnerability, right? In terms of make, deliver, plan, and source. I'll probably share this slide definitely to all the participants. Try and leverage the analytics as much as possible. Number 1, upgrade the technology wherever possible, wherever relevant. It can be more agile, more flexible. Maximize the capacity usage, with the existing location in order to increase the flexibility, which is also vital. Improve the visibility and increase the reliability with your, next generation of Industry 4.0. So that can come from a make point of view. From delivery point of view, prepare for direct shipment from the plant, if possible. Evaluate different lanes or different mode of transport from a delivery point of view. Enter the capacity agreement with the strategic 3PLs, if possible. And in the plan point of view, focus on must-win and medical need products, very important. Source point of view, optimize the inventory position. So these are some of the 16 levers which I'm going to share to all of you. The 16 lever cannot fit in for every company. You need to step back and see which lever is relevant for which company, for your company, and then leverage. So these archetype is important. After that, leveraging the levers is important. So slowly, every company is resolving their current problem, trying to be a resilient company. They come back to the return, of the business. That is not enough. You need to step back and reimagine your business. Very different level of reimagination is required. Finally, reform with a new concept like the omni-channel and multi-channel. So this is the the thought process which I want to leave it to the panelists as well the audience. With this, I probably close my thoughts. I would request Mr. Mrinal. I'll probably stop sharing my screen. Mr. Riaz, you should provide access to Mr. Mrinal. Yeah? So I would actually request Mr. Mrinal to share his thoughts. Maybe another 8 to 10 minutes. We have 3:20, so we're expecting to go with 3:28 or so. Mr. Mrinal, I think you can start sharing your presentation. And he's going to talk about digitization of pickup and delivery solution, keeping zero contact in mind. Would love to get your thoughts, Mr. Mrinal. Riaz, you should provide the access to Mr. Mrinal.
Yeah, he has provided. Just give me a second to.
Perfect.
Is it visible now?
Awesome, sir. Clear, sir. Everything is clear.
Sure. So good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thanks to CII and thanks to Dr. Ganesh to give us an opportunity. We are from the House of DTDC, which is a household name. So I'll have a few slides on about DTDC, what we do and how we do. We are the India's premier express logistics distribution organization, and we have a shareholding of La Poste or Geopost, which is a French national logistics player, but mostly it is a homegrown organization. We have just celebrated 30 years of our existence in India, and probably proudly say that today, Express Industry Council of India, the chairman is also our chairman. DTDC's chairman is hosting that post. So it's a very, very proud moment for all DTDCians that our chairman or managing director is now the chairman of Express Industry Council of India. We primarily we have our direct presence in India and also 16 plus odd countries, around 8,000 odd employees in India, We are the largest channel partner, means franchisee. We have 11,000 of them. And out of 17,000 odd pin codes or zip codes of India, we cover around 11,500. So next to India Post, we cover the best. Obviously, India Post, being India Post, they cover every nook and town of India. We uniformly, if you go to Ladakh and Leh, DTDC franchisee is there. To Kanyakumari, we are there, and other places. You can't see the presentation, Mr. Ganesh?
Sir, we could, sir. Very well, very well. No problem.
No, somebody pointed that he can't see the presentation.
Oh, sorry. Maybe it may be a internet issue at their end. We could see the slide, our network.
Okay.
The slide, what you're projecting is our network. Hope you are there in that slide, right? Yeah.
Yes, I'm our network, correct.
Yeah. I'll let you know, sir. If any problem, I'll let you know. But so far, good.
Great, thank you so much. So with this, what we do, we generally is the end mile customer, end mile service provider. So through this, our 11,000 franchisee serving 11,500 zip codes of India, uniformly we serve. First time we offer time definite service in India, and we pre-COVID used to carry around 120 million shipments. To cover clearly, before lockdown on 23rd of March 2020, we used to carry around 5.5 lakh shipments per day, and we are 100% GST and now e-invoice compliant. As you all know, the challenges during the tough time, you put your best, and we're probably one of the few logistics players who could go online on e-invoice, which has gone live on 1st of October. So that's the power, and we have our own presence at 16 odd countries, with 220 odd countries we service to our partners. But yes, when COVID-19 came, it's a root shock for all CIOs. And if I say that we were ready, I would lie. But there were scopes were there which we really gone ahead for last 2 years. So first of all, COVID-19 came with a huge shock. There was service failure, several issues, complete lockdown. But this pandemic also told us that how we need to stay invested on technologies. At DTDC always, since its inception, leaving the first few years, we continued to implement cutting-edge technologies, continued to invest on technologies, continued to stay connected with the customer, which truly helped us, and the partner ecosystems that really helped us that to cope up with the whole situations over there. Because our data center, our link providers, we have 8,000 employees. Obviously, we have around 26,000 odd active devices. So partnering with a good partner ecosystems was very critical. And I say thanks to Team Computers, IBMs of the world, Wipros of the world, who stay focused and supported. Despite we literally, it won't be out of place to mention that we moved to zero business on 2nd April. If you heard me correctly, 23rd March, we picked up around 6.5 lakh shipments. And 2nd April, we started with zero. So from that environment, partner support was very important. Partner means our channel partners, our franchisees, our technology partners were very important. And the right investment of the technology has really helped us well. So I won't take much time, but definitely I just quickly brush through a few slides on this subject. Completely digital platform we have created. We have a complete end-to-end through our shipping tool. We digitize customers' journey from customers' premises with online wearable preparation. Entire middle mile, where from point A to point B we carry the material. All vehicles are GPS enabled. We have auto sorting machines. All our probably we are the only company who has such a huge investment on auto sorting machines at all our major warehouses. Extra machines at all major gateways for the industry compliance. Entire operation can be done through a handheld terminal. We have more than 2,000 of them So DTDC's entire process can be managed through handheld terminal. You don't need a computer per se, and a very strong process and re-engineering team who continuously evaluate and invest on technology and the process so that we can maintain performance. I must say that during COVID-19, this team came very handy, and that's why from zero to pre-COVID in 6 months' time, 6 to 7 months' time, this team, along with the IT, along with the other business team member, finance obviously, and the operation and the sales and marketing team, together we could achieve that within 7 months. We are back to pre-COVID environment, and not only that, we are moving ahead further, and obviously we are if as a human being we don't do any foolish act, and we don't get into COVID second wave or third wave, we are actually dreaming that will be a bit of profit. That's how we planning. But also completely digital last mile. Our 99% deliveries are happening through a mobile device. With our 11,000 franchisee, at least 70,000 people right now at this point of time are delivering and capturing data through a mobile device, like the way Amazons of the world or Flipkarts of the world. So from first mile, middle mile, last mile, end-to-end visibility to the customer by a complete digitized process. Quite a robust IT system, what I told you that we have implemented. 26,000 odd endpoints are there. I must say that last 3 points are very important, that we are moving to a hybrid cloud environment from an own DC to a GCP and AWS environment. The 5th point, a complete G Suite really helped us because when employees are dispersed and they are working from home, G Suite came as a very handy. And I don't know how many million minutes of Google Talk we had with the customer internally, with our franchisee, with our partners. That has really helped us. And last but not the least, if you see the back-to-back 3 devastating impact on our ransomware happened in various Indian industry, this one particular component has really helped us. We had a world-class EDR, endpoint detection and prevention tool, and a very powerful VPN. Through this, at this point of time, right now it is 3:30 till now, we're quite safe and sound and managing it well. So what exclusively we did for COVID-19? One point I can say that from an inbound in-house call center, we moved to a completely work from home based call center, a cloud-based telephony. We have provided to all our call center agents, 115 of them. They are staying at their home. We have extended with the laptop, VPN, and ERP connections to them. And this cloud telephony could help them to get their customer voice wherever they are, whether they are Tiruchirappalli or whether they are at Guwahati. We are landing calls to their house so that they can take the call and support the customer. This is definitely has helped us a lot. We are using Knowlarity as a cloud telephony. Obviously, G Suite became a big boon. We migrated from a hosted environment to G Suite, which came as a big boon during this environment. We actually migrated into completely mail messaging, document sheet, and drive solutions. Everybody, from our managing director till the bottom rank of the organization, they completely moved into an integrated platform where we don't share any more data. We share sheet, we share doc, we share drive, and everybody need to update on that particular subject so that multiple up and down with the mail we can reduce. So that really helped us when you are not physically people and when you are not meeting them physically over there. Subject we brought, because estimated 7.2 million people are working from home, like all of you. Then how service? You want to send something to your parents. You want to bring something from your parents to your place. You want to give to them during Diwali, but you're scared to go to a courier counter because you do not know they are safe or not. So there's a complete app-based, mobile app-based solution we brought for our for the Indians, My DTDC app, through which you should be able to find out that the area where you want to deliver it is serviceable by us or not. Then you can pay online and we'll come to your doorstep to do the pickup and delivery. So thousands of people are benefited. Many corporates started using it. They are through their HR, they are informing their employee that start using this app. And obviously, when you are work from home, you need printer cartridge, printer, laptop replacement, and we are doing extensively with all big MNCs and large MNCs. We are giving their endpoint service to their employee. So that's one very big tool we have created. A nice tool for us. As I told that this EDR actually a lifeline for us now called CrowdStrike. Through this, we are securing all our 8,000 endpoints. We do not know people which network they are using, what internet they are using. But the moment they are on corporate office LAN or WAN, they are completely secured and cleaned. And we are completely control their activities and monitoring their activities. So that's it has really helped us right now. And I'm very proud to see that it has really scaled up well during this exigency time. And so that's in a nutshell. I must say that thanks to CII, this digital transformation, what has happened, I must say that a big eye-opener for the management. Through this digital platform, I can do more business, I can do more secure, I can do our customer security if we invest a proper secured environment and doing business digitally. I must say thanks to our management who listened to us and rely on us, and we could bring them back at pre-COVID era within 7 months of time. Thank you, CII, for this nice opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Manal. Thanks a lot. So fantastic. I think this is a classic example of moving from a digitization to a digitalization, right? So I think everyone can get digitized, but I think how do we execute and make it happen from a digital setup? It's a classic example. I think very well said. I mean, personally, I would recommend. I think you should actually think for a case study in some of the HBR or some of the good journal, right? So which can be a fantastic digitalization experience, right? So that I think you should embark for it. You should talk to your management and try and do that. So it's a classic example, sir.
Before I talk to management, first of all, thank you so much, and I will stay connected with you to take this journey forward. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, sir. Thanks a lot. So having said this, we have seen one of the fantastic case of digitalization. So now we are going to hear from Mr. Bharat. How are you going to leverage the custom application for the success, right? So you have seen one fantastic case, and now we're going to hear another one of the greatest experience. Riyaz, you should give him access for sharing the PowerPoint. Awesome. Yes, Mr. Bharat, over to you. Would love to hear from you as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ganesh and CII team. And we have almost 100 people here on this meeting. In tough times like this, I'm sure you would have taken the pain to be a part of this discussion. I'm sure you would have sacrificed some other discussions or meetings, and you've taken time out to join here, and we sincerely appreciate that. I'll do my best to ensure that your 10 minutes spent here and the next 2 hours you spend with us is valuable. I'll keep it very short. I mean, I'll want to keep it more conversational as well. So my session or my presentation is focusing on custom applications for supply chain success. So what is custom application and why do we need that? I'll cover that. Just one quick intro slide about who I am and where I come from. I represent an organization called Zoho. I'm not sure if you have heard about Zoho. Zoho is a software as a service player. almost 25 years of existence, 8,000 plus employees. 45 plus applications. So when we say applications, each product, we call it as an application. So for example, we have our own email system. We have our own, let's say, Microsoft PowerPoint equivalent, Excel equivalent, and so on. So multiple applications on those lines. CRM is one of our well-known applications, spread across 180 plus countries, 50 million plus users, and the connected ecosystem. The reason why we mention connected ecosystem specifically is that it gives organizations the power to make use of the platform. And I represent one of the applications of Zoho called Zoho Creator, which is a low-code platform. What is a low-code platform? I'll explain that here. Digital transformation is a buzzword, right? I mean, even pre-COVID or after COVID, we all want to know about digital transformation. We want to embark on digital transformation journey. So just when COVID was hitting, I mean, just a couple of months before COVID, early this year, we ran this survey to understand from our user base, more than 600 plus participants, to understand what exactly, where are you in your digital transformation journey? And it was a long survey that we did. And one interesting aspect I've highlighted here is what CIOs tell us is, hey, we want to embark on digital transformation journey, but we already have, like if you see this chart, more than 25% of the organizations are saying we already have 100 plus applications in queue. Like I have, as a CIO, as an IT team, I already have a pipeline of projects to be delivered. And then now you come and say we need to embark on digital transformation. So how do I prioritize? I have limited resources and those challenges. I'm sure many of you here will be able to understand this. Now flip the table. Let's say you're on the other side. You're a business user. Let's say you head the operations, or let's say you head HR function for your organization, right? And you want something to be built, an application that you want to build. Again, when you go to IT, there are priorities, how to work together, and those challenges are also happening. So this is a classic digital transformation challenge where should I start and how should I prioritize and who all will be involved? These are major concerns. Now, tying that to supply chain logistics industry, I'll just share a small anecdote here. So I'm basically a software, let's say customer experience manager, marketing sort of a person, but predominantly focus on logistics and supply chain. And when I started, there was one person, like we were talking about this industry, that industry, which is good, which is great and all that. And then suddenly out of nowhere, one person asked me, Bharat, can you show me one thing in this room where a logistics supply chain person was not involved? Just take one thing and show to me that, okay, this thing came here and there was no logistics supply chain person's hand involved in it. I was not able to point any. Right from, let's say now, the phone I use, the laptop I use, the food I have that was delivered by a mobile app organization, right? Everything has a logistics supply chain person's or a team's involvement. And then somehow it felt like a stark, something hit on my face saying, okay, this is such an important space, right? So now let's come back to this scenario. There is digital transformation requirement across the globe, but what is the scenario in logistics, right? I'll throw a small trivia here. So if you're wondering, this zebra image was a copy paste mistake, it's not. I'm sure many of you know, like the stripes of a zebra are unique, like how our fingerprints are unique, as a zebra's stripes are unique. Now, how is it linked to logistics / supply chain? Is our operations are also unique. What I do for my organization, I've never come across two clients. So I've been, let's say, delivering software for logistics supply chain players for the last 7-8 years now at least. I've never come across the same software getting installed in two clients. That's because each one runs very differently, right? From like the same material that someone transports, someone wants to build by volume, someone wants to build by give a weightage to, let's say, the type of material and so on and so forth. So I'm sure all of us understand those nitty-gritties in how we work, how we execute our logistics operation. Now, when we embark on digital transformation, this uniqueness has to be respected. How I work, how my organization works, versus a standard template cannot be applied to me. That is one important thing. Second, when we start digitization efforts, when we know that, okay, I need to improve my IT throughput or I need to work more on the digital initiatives, the customization efforts take a lot of time. That is another challenge. Like it can be in terms of capital, because let's say you go for an ERP, you go for any software player, there is an investment involved, and also there is a time involved. You're investing some people in your organization to work on it and so on and so forth. Last and very, very important challenge, and highly aggravated in our space, in logistics supply chain space, is the need for the domain knowledge and IT knowledge, in the sense that someone who is developing an application or putting a roadmap for what you want, someone who can say, okay, 3 years from now, like I was having a conversation with one Indonesian logistics player 8 years back, and he was talking about, can we create a Facebook Messenger sort of an interface for my customers? Facebook Messenger was not even popular there. That sort of someone who understands the business, but also understands the IT requirement, that domain of both, these bringing that together and then developing an application or challenges. So my point here is digital transformation, all of us know is important, but we are not able to go the road because of multiple challenges. This is my crux of the presentation. I would like to introduce this concept called low code. I'm sure some of you would have heard about it. Some of you might be coming across this term for the first time. I'll explain what a low code is. Low code platforms, Gartner uses this term low code. They are platforms that help organizations build applications with minimal coding or sometimes with no coding. Very, very crudely put, given, I mean, taking the risk of simplifying it or oversimplifying it, very, very crudely put, let's assume you have a flow chart saying these are the steps, this is how a particular process should work. But the flow chart itself becomes an application. It becomes a software. All you're doing is just building a flow chart, but it is actually becoming a software. That is what low code does. Where with simple drag and drop interfaces, with some coding, if there is complexity, there will be some level of coding. You'll be able to build applications that you want. And what are the benefits of this low code as a concept? First, quicker development. You'll be able to build applications faster, and you don't have to boil the ocean. Like, you don't have to create a larger change management in an organization to build something. It can just be a simple small team of 3-4 people building a proof of concept out of an application. And if it works, you can scale up, or you can go to the next pilot. No, that it is as simple as that. Unlike, let's say, an ERP software, an organization-wide transformation is required. This is where the benefit is, and the development is faster. Obviously, the costs are much, much lesser, and much better customer experience in the sense that this platform respects the uniqueness of you. You can build applications that are best suited for your organization, and you don't have to use a standard off-the-shelf made for everyone sort of an application. Or even if you want to customize, it's not customized by a player outside. It can be customized by someone in your organization for your needs. That's another important thing. And final and very, very critical point is the business IT alignment. IT software development is in a way seen as an external, like for a business user, it's seen like, oh, I go to someone, I raise a request, and then he does it for me. But here it will not be like that. It will be both business and IT teams working together to build applications. It's a large concept. Let me check my stopwatch here. I mean, I am at 7.5 minutes already. So I'll quickly skim through this. Zoho Creator is a low-code platform where you can build applications that you want. Very crudely put, you don't have to worry about any aspect of your application like security, upgrades, things like that. Everything is handled by the platform. You just have to focus on the business logic. Say, this is how the whole application has to work, and you design it yourself, and the application goes live. So the whole intent of tying, I mean, what is the agenda of today is we're talking about resilience, right? Which is where concepts like this come in. I'm sure you would have been exposed to multiple areas. Like, I'm sure AI and ML and other things are commonly used. Low code is not that popular yet, but in logistics space, but outside low code is catching up. So Gartner predicts that by 2024, more than 60% of the applications will be built through this concept. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to introduce the concept of low code. In terms of creator, for want of time, I will skip. So these are some of our customers. I just wanted to highlight this one use case alone, BlackBuck. I'm sure many of you would be aware of BlackBuck. So given the unique model, they were able to build applications that their business wants in 4 weeks' time. That's the power of the platform. And I'll be very frank, not just Creator, there are multiple platforms like this. I would sincerely urge you to explore other platforms also, but we have seen success, and more so in logistics space, because of 2 reasons. One, at one end of the spectrum, we are seeing larger organization. I'm sure, I came across DHL's in-boot delivery like 3.5 years back, right? So that is at one stage. But there are organizations in logistics that are still using Excel. So that divide is very vast. So in a space like this, definitely the low-code platforms will work better. And second, the uniqueness of operations. Since each one of us works very differently, there are nuances. Instead of a standard off-the-shelf solution, a platform where you can build on yourself will definitely add value. I'll close with just one slide here. What are some values that we bring from Zoho's point of view? Is we are transparent. Our pricing is listed online, as simple as that. We respect user privacy. If you visit our website, we won't even ask you to accept cookies, as clear as that. And if you want to explore this platform, we can provide it for you for free of cost for 2-3 months, whoever is willing to. And also we can build a free proof of concept application for you so that you understand how the platform works. Last but not the least, we look at this as a long-term vision. We are not looking at selling something to a player, but more in terms of partnering with someone, understanding, helping them grow. And that's how we believe. I mean, the organization believes that be it employees or customers, you empower them and automatically they will grow and you will grow. So that's our culture. One single takeaway, if my slide deck was boring and you missed the whole thing, if you're just listening for this next 30 seconds, there is this way to convert ideas to application, whatever be the idea. Maybe it's a problem, maybe it's a new idea that you think of, and you want to convert that to a software, to an application, much, much faster and much more affordable way. And that option is low code, and Zoho Creator is one such option. I would sincerely urge you to explore that. If you need any help, feel free to reach out to this email. Thanks again for taking time out. Sincerely appreciate this, and thanks to CAI, Dr. Ganesh, and everyone for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
No, thanks, Mr. Bharat. Fantastic. I think it's a need of the hour because everyone actually wanted to kind of get a very quick win element, right? I think so. I think you said last 30 seconds. Actually, you said it rightly. Somebody want to convert an idea to application in a 10x. Very smart way of saying it. Fantastic, right? So I think I know at least in my experience, what I've seen. If somebody want to create a integration system or IT system, the implementation takes 6 months to 9 months, or 9 months to 12 months, or even beyond that, right? I think now you are actually bringing a complete transformation, which is actually can happen in a shortest possible time. So, which is very glad to understand and know. I think probably I'll come back and ask some more questions, when I actually get to ask few questions, right? So. Thanks, Ms. Bharat. It was a wonderful presentation and a wonderful message for all of us to kind of step back and think. Thanks for that. Yeah. So good. So having said this, I'll probably now go to switch gears. So we just switch gears in terms of how do we actually leverage some of the thoughts from other panelists whom we have. So we have actually total 5 panelists, right? So I'll ask few questions to each one of them. Probably I'll start with Mr. Tanmay, if you're fine, sir. I'll go with you. I'll start with you.
Sure.
Awesome, sir. So I think so we heard about the logistics transformation from DDDC, and then we heard about the new application from Mr. Bharat, right? So my question to you is actually today in the COVID, the biggest problem is demand. Even though we get a demand, we could forecast demand. But the variability of demand is huge, and how do we control demand? How do we look at the variability of demand is a bigger topic. Want to get your thoughts because the topic is resilience. How is the demand volatility for you for Coke as a company, Coca-Cola as a company during the COVID situation? What are the different strategies or resilience methods you kind of using it? And how we are tackling now, and what is your strategy to tackle in future as well? I want to get your thoughts. So I'll start with one of the key important elements of demand, and then I'll go to the other people to hear their thoughts. Over to Mr. Tanmay.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh, and thank you, CII team, for having me here. Really privileged, and thank you so much. So before I kind of take your question, Ganesh, let me just start by saying that, okay, Coca-Cola as a system is like more than 3,500 plus products globally, present in 200 plus countries. We do about 1.7 billion servings every day. And it is like 16 or 17 $1 billion brands that exist. Now, this is statistics a little before pre-COVID, right? And you're right. So things changed with all the lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the unlocking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that continued to happen. And we as an organization also responded by looking at 2 or 3 things to kind of just put it in perspective and get to your point on starting point, which is the demand. And ours is an impulse product, right? So impulse product and much of our sales comes from when consumers are out in the market, consumers are traveling, and think about it, where there is no sanctity to eating and dining. Restaurants are closing down. People are not going to restaurants. People are not flying. And we don't know when and how much will change and when it will change, right? So given all that context, it was not easy for us to kind of keep pace. So obviously, from a overall volume and revenue perspective, we get impacted. But then it's a different scenario across different markets in terms of how they have shown the resilience and responded based on the local context. So let me give you a few examples. So the first piece was about simplifying our portfolio mix. If we had 100 SKUs, it obviously did not make sense during the COVID period to continue to manage those 100 SKUs. So it was a huge exercise in saying that, okay, here are the few SKUs that we're going to focus on. And this is at a global level, at a country level. There was an exercise to look at what's the simplification of the supply chain that we need to do. And that has paid us huge and rich dividends as we look at from a demand forecasting and all of that perspective. So first was about simplification. The second big piece was about bringing in more visibility to various elements of the supply chain and bringing it in more frequently. So whether it is about inventory, whether it is about distributor stocks, whether it is about retailer stocks, who is open, which area and geography is in the red zone, which is in the orange zone, which is in the green zone. And since all of this is changing also very dynamically, it becomes very important to have this information near real time and then change your strategy and execution on ground accordingly. So that was clearly a big, so we had an analytics team which was churning out a host of different kinds of reports and using analytics to look at how we can influence demand by looking at newer channels that are operating. So e-commerce was seeing a phenomenal growth, right? And like you've seen, so e-commerce was continuing. Pharmacy as a channel which we had never explored in the past, right? Was another big channel and a growth driver for us. So seeing how shifts in patterns are happening in terms of channel, a complete new channel strategy, simplifying our overall portfolio, looking at of how consumer behaviors are changing. So we kind of looked at, if it is people are staying at home, how could we kind of reach the product at their homes and looked at ways of getting the product to their homes. So in many of the housing societies, you would have the Coke trucks coming in and selling the Coke products. So Coke on the go. So there were a host of areas to look at from a demand point of view, from a service point of view of how we could reach the consumer. And some of them is what I highlighted to you, but I could go on. But it was primarily about simplifying, primarily about looking at new channels and capitalizing on it, leveraging analytics in a near real-time dynamic way.
No, fantastic. This is really helpful. Maybe 10-second nutshell, right? I think you said very clearly, simplification or standardization, very important. Second is visibility. So that is second. And third, what I learned is channel collaboration. So completely, that's why you are reforming your channel. That is great. And obviously leveraging analytics for customer behavior. I think 4 fantastic learning for us. Thanks, Mr. Tanmay, right? So I probably, having we solved the demand, I probably move to Mr. Saimdev. From your context, Mr. Saimdev, let's say demand is sorted, demand is great, very good. I go to a question on the manpower, right? So, did you face any, every company actually have a lot of issues in terms of labor and manpower and contracting setup, but did you face any labor, manpower issues pre-COVID, during COVID, now, as of now, in the current situation? And how do you manage and how you are going to manage and what are the strategies you deploy? I think if you could actually throw some light there, from your experience, because demand is started with some of the strategies, great. How do we start with operations through manpower and labor? Mr. Saimdev, I think over to you to kind of get your thoughts. How are you managing now and what are strategies you're going to deploy in future as well? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh, for asking me this question. Yeah. The short answer to your question is no, we have not faced any challenges regarding manpower, but I'll go a little back into history and share with you the context. As you would understand that beer is one of the preferred drinks in the summer season. And when this lockdown happened from the 24th of March to the 4th of May, that was our peak season. While all industries have been impacted by this lockdown, we were a little more impacted because for us, that was the section where we are maximum in terms of our salience for the year. However, as it was a peak season for us. Prior to going for lockdown, we had ramped up our operations across all the 20 odd breweries which have in India. When this lockdown happened, there was a double whammy. When I say it's a double whammy, one, you had the maximum number of contract laborers engaged on the site, and two, you had zero production. However, as a responsible corporate citizen, we decided to honor all our commitments, and during the course of the lockdown, we actually paid all the contract workmen the dues which they were entitled to, irrespective of whether production happened or not. What helped us in the long run was to get the confidence of the labor. And then when the lockdown was lifted, we, unlike many other industries who faced a lot of problems with respect to manpower, we didn't face much of issue because the laborers also realized that this is a responsible corporate, and they also reached out to us to support us in our hour of need.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Glad that you could actually kind of thought about this earlier in terms of the the overall how to manage operations with the production setup. That is a game changer. I'm very glad to know, Mr. Saindri. Maybe I think I'll move to Mr. Piyush to kind of understand his thoughts. Mr. Piyush, a question to you is, I think coined the question in two ways. One would be, what is the most difficult challenge you faced, especially during COVID? I mean, everyone actually have to return and want to be very flexible and resilient. But having said this, what challenges you faced? What are the strategies you have taken on the table, especially the post-crisis strategy? I mean, we are slightly better now, and earlier I think it's very difficult. But post-crisis strategy, what you suggest should retailer consider, and what you considered? I think if you could throw some light, that would be helpful from your point of view. Now, how the companies can be more resilient, more flexible. Would also love to hear from you, Mr. Piyush.
Thank you. I think covering after beverage is always going to be boring stuff for retail. Yeah, so we had the beer supplier and the Coke supplier. Now we'll talk about dal chawal. Yeah, so how do we make sure that everybody gets the right food? And the challenges were immense. Okay, let me be honest here. I think Mrinal also pointed out saying that it was something which was new, and I think in the initial days, the way we saw it is the first thing which comes for a retailer like us is because we cater to almost the entire spectrum of the shopping basket. We're talking about a very large assortment, and obviously, believe me, hand sanitizers, masks were never part of the assortment that we were carrying pre-COVID. Yeah. So how can you transform the entire machinery, right, from sourcing, movement of goods, of supply chain, and then placement in the stores, and also the channels of commerce? The entire thing had to be rejigged quite strongly as part of the response to COVID. What we initially thought is the first thing is, I think it happened very well, is that how did we go about planning of sourcing so that food scarcity does not become a problem. I know, although we have come out very nicely as a part of this, but I think when we were sitting down in the early parts, late February and early March, the main kind of thought which is going in our mind is obviously, as you would know, Middle East or GCC countries, 80-90% of the stuff here is imported. We don't have anything local here. We rely on everything which is sourced from anywhere in the world. We have 22 sourcing locations worldwide. So the challenge was, how can we make sure that we have enough stock to fulfill our stores? That was a prime requirement. So we basically sat down, and that is where the agility of the organization comes into play. We sat down with the government, took some additional warehousing space, and believe me, the amount of warehousing space that we added in a period of 3 to 4 weeks, it takes years for organizations to add that. Yeah, it takes years. Let me be honest here. And it was predominantly converting a lot of bare shell sheds into warehouses by putting in whatever is needed, making sure that you have your supply chain and this stock level sorted out very well. So that was the first thing that happened very differently. And luckily, I would say I'm quite proud in saying that none of our stocks ever ran out of any essential supply during the entire time of COVID. Yeah, and I think that's a great achievement for the team which is working behind that. The second big change is obviously the customer behavior, right? In the GCC region, digital commerce or e-commerce was just 3%. Yeah, which means that 97% of the commerce was happening in the physical stores. And suddenly, what happened is everybody wanted to get everything online. Yeah, right, delivered to the store. The brand of cheese that they want, the variety of milk that they want, and everything. And that was one of the biggest second challenge that we wanted to solve. Honestly, I think worldwide we have seen that no retailer, be it the best digital retailer as well as physical retailers, nobody was ready from a fulfillment angle. Okay, the technology solutions were running absolutely fine. The websites, the commerce platforms, everything was running fine because you already had moved to cloud and you were basically already in a much more resilient and a scalable format. But when it comes to the last mile delivery, you needed people, you needed trucks, you needed processors, you needed people to go to the locations. I think that was another big challenge, which I think was a new learning. Lot of retailers actually moved there. So what we also did is we moved a lot of our department store who are working in fashion chains and fashion departments were moved to, let's say, e-commerce picking. We set up a temporary large warehousing, last mile fulfillment center, and we were able to scale up. So these are changes which, although might seem to be very normal now, but the changes that we are talking about would take at least a few quarters and maybe in some organizations years to actually implement. And what COVID has taught us is that we are able to do things much faster. So the mantra that I tell everyone is that the only way forward is to be agile. And it is not only agile, but hyper speed agile. Yeah. And that is what I would recommend all the organizations to think of as digital leaders and digital players. How can you build fulfillment centers in weeks? And how can you scale up capacity in months? That is the new mantra that we need to work for.
Fantastic. I think you kind of coined the mantra, which is hyper speed agile. I really love this. I hope you will not have a copyright. I'll probably use it somewhere. No, this is fantastic, right? So I think I want to summarize your thought, right? I think customer behavior, I think very important element. What I read, at least one of the McKinsey survey, what we have done, 91% of the customer have changed the shopping behavior, meaning in some form, some way. It is actually either a different channel or a different brand, or it may be anything else, right? So I think that is like very shocking for me. I think Mr. Tanmay also mentioned about that in the discussion, right? So I think that is very important point what you mentioned, and the fulfillment angle very, very critical. And I know that's not an easy nut to crack, but I think that is important. And agile, I think everyone actually talk about pre-COVID agile, but now you gave a terminology of hyper-speed agile, so which is a new terminology. But you're right, sir. I've seen in some other client situation, it happened in few weeks, and I think that's where Mr. Bharat also coming on the table, right? How we can actually make it happen in a short form and in a rapid way. Maybe I'll take it from you. The same hyper speed agile, Mr. Bharat. I'll probably move on to you, right? Having said this agility and kind of agile element. So you explained about your online development platform. So that is very, very clear and good, right? I wanted to understand. Let's say if I am a company where as even Mr. Piyush mentioned, like 97% is commerce and 3% is e-commerce, right? So now I'm just trying to embark the journey. Let's say I want to do a e-commerce journey. So I'm a company who had to move to e-commerce, right? Can I do a trial? Can I check it out? How your platform or this online development platform, whatever you talk about, right? So how this is going to be useful for people who haven't tried anything as e-commerce. They want to enter, they want to kind of try it out, they want to do some kind of app and try it out. So how it is feasible? Just want to get your thoughts and sense. What is your suggestion and what is your kind of advice to the people who really wanted to understand and move to e-commerce as a channel? Want to get your thoughts, Mr. Bharat? Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you, Ganesh. So my role is more like interacting with multiple logistics players, right? So my answer currently is based on, let's say, over the last 8-9 years, I would have interacted with at least 200 to 250 plus logistics players across the globe. So I would answer this in two parts, Mr. Ganesh. One is the tools, and second is the people. Let me also explain why I am stressing on the people when I come to them. In terms of tools, to answer your question, definitely. I mean, be it, let's say, the product that I spoke about, Zoho Creator, or there are multiple options available outside as well. Like Microsoft has tools. For e-commerce alone, Shopify has tools. So I'm not doing any sales pitch here, but definitely there are multiple products that are available, including Zoho Creator. In terms of the benefits of the tool, let's say, for example, when you want to embark on the e-commerce sort of a journey, there are specific requirements that can be handled by these tools. For example, portals are available, even in the application development platform that I spoke about. After you build your, let's say, application, you want to give access to only to your customers, or let's say only to your suppliers or vendors. You can build supplier portals where through this platform itself with no coding, no hosting worries. You don't have to worry about whether it is posted on which cloud and all that. Everything is taken care by, let's say, Zoho itself or other players that you decide to go ahead with. And you can expose that portal alone to your users, to your suppliers, and so on. So that is one way of going about it. Even, let's say, for your last mile delivery, you want mobile apps, you want track and trace, you want like a control tower, command center to get complete visibility. The tools provide those. So Zoho Creator also provides all of this. Like when you build something for the web, it gets definitely possible.
Maybe your voice is a little breaking. Maybe yes, going to let you know. Sorry, you can. Yeah, there was a maybe discomfort, but yeah, you can maybe go slow. Maybe people might get to know you well. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. Those things in some places get missed. In the rush to go e-commerce, you think only about the tools and the software and, let's say, the top line, but people culture aspect is equally important as well. That's my submission.
No, I think well said, because I know platform technology is one element, but I think how do we kind of think about the front line, the right set of people, the right sort of capability. I think you touched a very great point. So thanks, Mr. Bharat. Right. So I think we covered a fantastic setup in terms of how do we move from a current situation to a e-commerce setup and what to be thought of, right? So I probably take you as whatever you said. I go back to Mr. Mrinal because he kind of implemented in some of the digital element in the last few months, right? So Mr. Mrinal, you mentioned about a lot of digital element you are kind of trying to embark the journey. What I want to understand, I think there was a question also in the Q&A. So what are the challenges you face, sir? I mean, I know this is not easy. It's not easy journey for sure, right? What challenges at least you faced? Any specific advice for the people who are embarking the digital journey as you kind of embark, right? You've done a lot of digital element and digital oriented technology you embark, right? So what to watch for and what are the challenges in digitalization which you encounter, and if any piece of information or piece of advice you want to provide to the people, what they have to have it on the table before they start the journey. Mr. Bharat mentioned about one is frontline people. Very good, great. What else would want to understand from your experience and from your journey in DDTC? That'd be helpful, Mr. Mrinal.
Sure, I think as Mr. Piyush also said that overnight you may not be able to change a huge transformation.
Yeah.
And there are two aspects of it. One is that buying in from your management. That's very important. And for that, some quick failure and quick success is very important. You should not fear of failure. Many of the senior, once you grow up in the ladder, fear of failure stops us many times. Okay, so but a couple of points of what I generally give suggestions to my junior colleagues or to my peers. that one is that fail fast approach and quickly gather strength around it. Two, you may need not to depend only on your internal strength or internal team strength. You may have to find out quickly good partner in progress who can securely, reliably, they may be able to give you a better solution. Like for our app development, if I would have depending on my own team internally, I am not disrespecting them. They did fantastic job. But what I kept on hold, that the bridging part, the API part, we did by ourselves. The rest of the entire job we outsourced to a proven vendor, so that our go-to-market becomes speedier. Go-to-market becomes faster. That's very important. And once the go-to-market becomes faster, you gain much more management view and their appreciations, and apprehensions become appreciations. You start getting fund. And I have seen it even when, as I have told, from zero we have started in the 2nd April. From there, management bring back IT budget back to the front. It's a humongous courage by them, and they get courage when I need to invest in IT and automation and process and digitization. Once your internal team and external vendor together provided them a good, secure landscape. So first, don't look at your internal team alone, that they will deliver it. With a good mix of internal and external team in a secured way, fail fast approach. If you can do a good quick to market, I think there lies the success. At least I have seen, hopefully Mr. Piyush and other senior folks, they will appreciate that creates a lot of confidence into business heads' mind, and they won't mind to put forward their money on this subject.
No, makes sense. I think very valid. I know we can't expect the success immediately, but I think what you said is very clear, right? I think understand your internal strength and also think through what can be leveraged, what can be gather from the respective partner, the respective setup. I think makes brings a fantastic success on the table, and do a foolproof thought process, which is very important. I think you mentioned it very, very clearly, right? So maybe I think I probably go to Mr. Tanmay again, just to get his thoughts. I know, so I think we wanted to understand. I know Coke as an overall global company, Coca-Cola, you actually have a lot of, even pre-COVID element itself, technology-oriented, actions and digital-oriented actions, everything would have thought of earlier. But wanted to understand from you, what's something new or anything you have started to deploy post-COVID or during COVID? Or is it something strengthen the technology which is already you have? From there, you actually gone into a very deeper into the current technology. Want to get your thought? Anything which you have done something new in terms of technology during COVID and post-COVID? Or is it leveraging the old technology or old digital itself made the success or running the, is it like enough for you to run the show? Want to get some of the thoughts that'd be helpful.
Yeah, no, I think thanks, Dr. Ganesh. I think it's an interesting question because I know there were lots of these WhatsApp jokes going around that as COVID kind of accelerated the entire digital journey versus the CIO and the IT organization or the functions. So it's pretty interesting. So I think so there are 2 or 3 things that I just want to say on this piece. One is that some of the initiatives that were in the pipeline that we had, and there were a number of initiatives that were in the pipeline, largely I would say we did not stop. And for example, we implemented a new travel and expense Concur system. We were going live on the JDA end-to-end supply chain. We continued to do that, including various modules in the transport management system and things like that. During the COVID period also, we went live on a multiple of new digital technologies. For example, our entire cooler tracking system went through a completely different mobile-enabled way of looking and tracking coolers that you have in the market. very surprisingly, so there's a large team that sits under me, which is into order management, right? So they take orders from distributors and retailers. And this is kind of people who call up the distributors based on their history of orders and things like that. And think about a scenario where COVID, where you can't have a call center operation. Now, if you actually call up any of the ICICI Bank or an HDFC Bank, they say that we have limited staff and we can't support you, right? So that's the response you get, unless it's a credit card block. You can continue. But we can't get into a scenario where we can lose even one rupee of revenue. So in that scenario, we kind of again went through a new technology, new system, new solution where people could do this activity from their homes. So it was a completely new technology that we went into where people could take calls rather than from their desk phones, from their mobiles, both incoming and outgoing of what they need to do. So a host of things that were implemented from a digitization and a technology point of view. But one big filter that came in for any new initiatives was very simple and clear right across the company, that if it kind of pays us back in this year, any investments that is being made from a digitization and a technology perspective, which is in the same year in 2020, then we still go ahead. So if we get our paybacks in this year, but if it is something which is going to pay back in 2 years time or 3 years time, it is kind of on hold right now. But having said that, as we are seeing things easing out, as we are seeing things improve, things getting back to normal, there are calls that we're taking on certain large investments that can give us benefits in the next 1 to 2 years. So that's the overall story on the digitization initiatives.
Helpful, Mr. Tanmay. That was really helpful. I think, that is important. People actually, some of my clients, right? So I think you rightly mentioned some of the initiatives did not stop and they actually continued, and then that I think helps. And some initiatives, I think, obviously, from the COVID point of view, step back and think what would be the value add and what would be the way in which we can prioritize and bring the segmented initiative, not everything, right? Because many of the people actually always think digitization is not end-to-end, right? I think wherever relevant, wherever important, to try to bring on the table so that it can have add value. I think you rightly mentioned. Sorry, you're on mute, sir.
For example, Ganesh, I think the need of the hour during COVID was safety, which was on top of everyone's mind, and that was first. So there was a lot of things around the digitization from a COVID perspective itself, like the Setu app, but since we had concerns on data privacy, we had our own app and how people could update, how people could reach out to doctors online and in real time whenever they wanted, how they could book into getting into offices based on the need. So there's a lot of digitization and the chatbot and that activity saw a lot of new things coming up in that space.
Fantastic. So thanks, Tanmay. Probably I'll move to Mr. Piyush. Sir, I think want to get your thoughts, right? So especially from the channel point of view, right? I wanted to understand how today the retailer kind of completely exploit this e-commerce and whether that is happening, or have you seen any difference, right? So my question is especially from the channel, was it a bigger change, or was there any bigger challenge, and how you kind of overcome that? I think if you could share your experience, that'd be helpful. And also how do we kind of deploy strategy within the company to kind of manage the channel, right? So that I think would be helpful to understand, especially from the retailer channel. Somebody might be already in the proper digital, somebody may not be in digital setup. It's a combination of both. Maybe somebody wanted to go for a new channel of e-commerce. So wanted to get your thoughts, the entire channel management. So how was that experience in channel, and any specific suggestion or advice for the people would be helpful.
Sure, and I think there's but I think there is a flaw in the question itself, and I will kind of elaborate that.
Sure.
And the reason is that what has happened over the past 2 decades is when e-commerce came in, what people thought is that, okay, I have my physical channel, let me start my e-commerce or the digital channel. And then I will kind of have a channel head for e-commerce, I will have a channel head for physical retail. Yeah. And what has happened and what is seen today is, and that was challenged, that whole premise was challenged. And that is why I think if you see the transition, people have to move from a multi-channel strategy to a pure omni-channel strategy. Yeah. And that is a very different ballgame in itself. Let me be honest here that the best of the digital players are not omni-channel players. They really fail drastically when it comes to physical assortment, physical management of customer queries, physical returns, and so on and so forth. So what is needed in today's context, and we are working, I'm working on a project with Mica, in which we are trying to define an omni-channel readiness index. And what that will do is, it will basically across 80 to 100 parameters kind of show where you are from an omni-channel readiness. And I think that is what is important. And what is needed in omni-channel is to not look it from an organization's eyes, but to look it from a customer's eyes. Now, let me be honest here. Whenever a customer buys, he does not care a damn whether you are giving it through an online channel or a physical channel or an omni-channel channel. Yeah. What it wants is, he wants the best of the experience whenever he or she wants. And that's all is needed. So what is needed is, when you want to start an omni-channel journey, and I'm moving away from you asking me about what needs to be done from a channel strategy, you need to define an omni-channel strategy with keeping your customer transformation journey at the center of it. You need to define the customer journeys. You need to understand the personas of the customers. And based on those personas, you need to define ways by which you are able to differentiate your offerings. Because today, it is a very competitive market. Every month, you will see one digital platform coming up, and maybe every month, 10 digital platforms dying. Yeah. And the reason for that is that they are not able to understand what the varied type of customers are looking at, and how we can bundle that together into an offering which is so customizable, so personalized for the customer, that he or she is able to latch onto it. Although there are people who are digital native, have an advantage because of data and other things which they have already kind of established their platforms on. But I think if somebody had to really look at it today, create a data-enabled, customer-enabled omni-channel strategy, and basically work with the customer to define define a journey which can give a very, very great and a differentiated experience in a personalized form to them.
Fantastic. I think you rightly said. I think I was talking to some of my customers and clients, right? So I think today, in the new partnership, I think that is move quickly, right? So for example, I think I want to give some terminology which is called hyper local solution. For example, Unilever's merging with a Zomato or Swiggy. For example, ITC merging with a Domino's Pizza. So these are some of the hyper local solution, right? So that is one element. Second element, which is also horizontal e-commerce player, which is like a Tata Consumer Product with a Flipkart. So that is a kind of a horizontal e-commerce. And the third one is like a direct connect. I think we have a Coca-Cola as well. I mean, I heard that Coca-Cola with ITC store in, that is almost a direct connect or supply to a shopper, right? So that is like a, so these are three different, especially these are CPG firms. Honestly, the CPG firms, they're breaking the traditional route of the distribution channel, and supply through these three important hyperlocal solution, horizontal e-commerce player combinations, and direct connect to the supplier. Right? So these are the things which is happening, right? So maybe.
So I think, so just to add, see, DTC brands, direct to consumer brands, are the fastest growing brands in the world. Yeah.
Okay.
Very relevant that in the future days, you may not see these traditional models of distribution exist at all. How will a DTC supply chain look very different from a Unilever supply chain or a Coca-Cola supply chain, right? So there are ways by which things are evolving, and obviously digital and customer and all those things at the core. But I think we need to kind of make sure that we are aware of these changes which are happening, because digital will kind of eliminate a lot of friction which is there in the supply chain today. And that is what I think people need to be aware of, so that they are building processes, building customer journeys, which are much differentiated and unique in the days to come.
No, very good. Maybe I think one another question to you, right? Since we touched this part, offline player exploring omni-channel, would that be feasible? For example, like I heard something like Vishal Retail along with the Swiggy or Zomato. So they are like a complete offline player, right? So offline player exploring omni-channel. Is it happening? Want to get a sense.
So there are two aspects you are touching about. One is what is emerging is an ecosystem play, right? It's not no longer a single player who can dominate everything. People have to realize that. That is one part of it, in which what is happening is the lines between industries are blurring. So you don't know what is Swiggy. What is Swiggy? If somebody were to ask what is Swiggy around, you will not know. And maybe 2 years down the line, you will not know what form it will take. So that ecosystem is getting created. That is one part of it. But the second part of it is, when we are saying we want to do partnership, we are not looking at partnership of convenience. Okay, because since we don't have a digital player, let me tie up with a digital player and then try to merge. And I think that is called marriages of convenience, which don't last long. Yeah, and that I think has to be obviously as a jumpstart. It is a good thing. You basically partner with somebody who has worked on it, learn from it. But at the end of it, you need to differentiate. If you don't differentiate yourself from an offering, now you cannot have 20 people giving the same delivery. If there are 20 Swiggies, there's no place for 20 Swiggies, right? So you need to create something which is differentiated, either through your faster delivery, either through your convenience, either through your experience, whatever it is. You need to find that spot by which you are able to do that, so that you are able to kind of get that customer on your platform which is out there.
Yeah, but I think just to add to what Piyush you're saying, and Dr. Ganesh to your question, that yes, I think offline players, given the current scenario of lower footfalls into their stores, are looking at options or already doing options of direct to consumer and e-commerce and all of that. So that's very clear. And then you have the likes of JioMart and others who have come in, who are trying to build those partnerships with the retailers and bring in the benefit of e-commerce and the differentiation to kind of service the customer. So I think, yeah, you will see, to your point, these models completely evolving and changing big time.
Very good. No, very good. Very good. Thanks. Sorry, anyone? I mean, this is one of the important topic, which is also great topic. Anyone want to add? Please add. Because of the entire channel, omni-channel, the
I think I heard even alcoholic beverages are now direct to consumers. That's being planned.
I represent that sector. The answer to that is both yes and no. Sounds a little confusing. In some states they have opened up, but it's not across all states. So it's not a universal phenomenon. That's point number one. Point number two, again, in some states which have opened up, it has had mixed response of success, because again, unfortunately, alcohol is a very cash cow for the government. And for both alcohol and tobacco, the good part or the bad part of it is you can tax the industry and be virtuous about it, and at the same time kill the industry. And we've seen in COVID days, there was COVID taxes in Delhi, and then they were rolled back, and so on and so forth. So we were in very early stage of e-commerce, and this will take a long time to evolve. Certainly, we are pretty excited about it. And to be honest, it is not that this COVID led to this. We as an industry, at least from United Breweries, we have been consistently engaging with the statutory bodies and asking for a fair playing field. It's another matter also in the alcohol space, although beer is a alcoholic drink with less percentage of alcohol. But if you just look from a taxation of alcoholic beverages in terms of alcohol content, we are the highest taxed. So that's again a dichotomy. So these certain aberrations are there in the industry in terms of rules and regulations. We are actively engaging with the authorities, and we are pretty hopeful that going forward, things will be better than what they were yesterday.
Yeah, no, true, because I think the entire pharma landscape has changed. No one thought that Amazon would start delivering medicines.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, very good. Very good.
The regulation part, I think it is time for having beer as a service rather than beer as a can.
Piyush, I would love to hear that more often from many of my peers, and then I'm sure we together can influence government.
Yeah. One another discussion point, right? I don't know whether it is relevant to get one of your thoughts. The direct venturing, for example, maybe Bharat, you also please add on, right? Through app or through call or through WhatsApp-based solution. Because I heard, for example, DMart or Big Bazaar is kind of entering into a direct venturing. Any of you have any specific thoughts or ideas on this? Somebody getting into a direct venturing, this actually comes under the offline player. Obviously, the offline player exporting omni-channel through a direct venturing, right? So, one or two example, what I said is like the Best Price or DMart or Big Bazaar. These are actually entering into it, right? So, any thoughts anybody wanted to share from the app point of view, or from the technology point of view, or from the execution point of view? Would love to kind of hear if someone actually have some idea on it.
See, this divide between physical and online, I think is only temporary. And I think yesterday only Alibaba bought a big chain in China. Walmart is acquiring left, right, and center all physical space. So it is no longer physical versus digital kind of a world. The lines are blurring, and the winner at the end of it, maybe 10 years down the line, we will have a player who has both of them merged together seamlessly with the customer angle. And I think that is the way when people are talking about acceleration, particularly in the retail context, when acceleration has to happen in the digital, this merger of acceleration will be accelerated at a pace which we would have not seen in the past. It means that the lines between physical and digital retail will get so intertwined that we will be able to not differentiate between what is physical and what is digital.
Well said, sir. Maybe another 5-6 minutes. Probably I'll touch upon. I'll come for one more round, right? Mr. Saindev, I'll probably switch a gear to you. We talked about fantastic in terms of channel digital. Now analytics, right? I think the entire value chain need not be supply chain. It can be sales and marketing or demand oriented setup. Analytics point of view, have you done? I mean, your company have done something very different in the COVID period, or started something before COVID, which you are continuing. Want to get some thoughts, the entire end-to-end value chain, maybe from sales or marketing, from the demand or from the supply chain. How the analytics and advanced analytics is actually playing a role at your company, and what is a piece of advice you want to share?
Well, there are some, as they say, there are some axiomatic truths in life, like you should exercise is good for health, you should have healthy diets. It is a little ironical that today we are talking more of it in context of a pandemic, but irrespective of the pandemic, these are certain things you should do. So, coming back to your query in terms of this analytics, these are certain things which we have been following as an organization. It's not induced by
noise in the
but only thing what has happened is we've tweaked this journey, maybe accelerated.
There is some little noise in the back, maybe.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, some noise.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I think
but with some noise, sir. With some actually like very noise. Yeah.
Okay.
It was good earlier. I mean, a few minutes back, it was very good.
Some crackling noise.
Is it okay now?
No, it was like slightly disturbing for the others. I mean, there is a bump sound which is happening along with your voice.
Unfortunately, okay.
Yeah. Maybe I think I'll switch gears to someone else. Maybe if you, if possible, you can maybe rejoin or if possible.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay. Probably I'll move to Mr. Mrinal now, and then you can rejoin, right? So, Mr. Mrinal, probably I'll come back to you, right? So, maybe one question from your side on the analytics point of view, right? So, want to get your thoughts, especially. I know you have shown the entire transformation what has happened. So that's great. So, from the analytics point of view, any specific action have you done, and would you suggest if somebody wanted to get that into into their shoes and then getting along to the analytics? Is something actually happened drastically during COVID, or is it same? People actually want to put a old wine in a new bottle and show a different setup now. Want to get a very honest opinion from your side, Mr. Mrinal. Yeah, from your experience.
I don't think analytic can be old wine in a new bottle or something like that.
Right. Okay.
It is not possible. If somebody tries, definitely they will fail. And first of all, the points what I showed in my presentation, it's only tip of the iceberg. Only a few slides only I could organize. Okay. On the analytic front also, since there actually huge improvement has happened. I must say that we have migrated from an Excel-driven organization to a complete analytic-driven organization. For 6 months, our journey was to bring analytic to everybody's desk. So what we did, just a quick glimpse, we migrated our data pipeline into GCP BigQuery. Okay, so we have hosted our sales and operation data into GCP BigQuery, and we have connected both Google Data Studio and Tableau on BigQuery. Tableau for the senior management, Google Data Studio for the 5,000 odd employees over there. Wow. So all our branches, nearly 600 of them, they exactly know where are the shipments, what I need to do, next 1 hour planning, next day's plannings. Like I said, we had a Dashera festival went off, a Durga Puja went off. So what are the planning need to be done for that? There's a huge amount of material got stuck at Calcutta and Northeast and Odisha and other locations. So what is the planning for that? So if I stand today to any of the Calcutta branches, I will see a mountain of load. I can't take everything together. So we have identified and earmarked to them which is to be priority. So these analytics have helped us, which is priority today, which is for pharma segment, which is for which customer paid advance money or extra money, which is cash in nature, which is COD in nature. So we have clearly identified through data and guided those branches that you need to do this. So this is a huge transformation happen, which ultimately we all pray that in next 6 months' time, we should be able to predict that what will be our business. Okay. So we are moving from an Allah Bharose organization or depending on hands of God to some kind of a prediction that what you need to be ready for, both in terms of the sales. We are starting with the sales and operation. Then we may get into finance and other prerequisites also. So it's a huge transformation has happened, and I must say that if you see it very clearly, there is a floodgate of .ai organization. Okay. Every second company became .ai organization. What does it mean? Either a vision API or a sales API, a predict API, or a transformation API. Everybody is on that journey, which means a huge of it. We need to be little cautious, but I'm proud to say that I'm sure you should say that also, that production is going to become a big subject for all of us who are into logistics and supply.
Very good. This is really helpful, sir. Because I really wanted to
come back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We could hear you very well. I think Mrinal added actually, especially from the fact where we need to actually move to .ai. I think that's a fantastic phenomena you mentioned, sir. I think would love to hear from you, Mr. Saindev. In terms of analytics, a couple of examples would be helpful.
So I'll share with you some real life examples what we have done as an organization. And as I said, we started off this journey much before COVID. Now, because of COVID, it was accelerated or partly tweaked and so on and so forth. The first thing, the other thing I want to highlight is in today, AI in the supply chain may not be actually more about procurement, but about business processes. And I'll give you 2 or 3 concrete examples to drive that point. The first, as you know, for beer, the core product is malt. That's from how malt is beer is produced from malt. Now, it is spread across hundreds of mandis across India. And you already know that ITC has an e-Choupal business. Now, for us to actually get into an e-Choupal mode doesn't really work, because ITC works across a whole variety of commodities, whereas for us it is only restricted to malt. So there's no cut, copy, paste model. Every organization in its digitalization journey has to find its own moorings. So what we did is we actually brought in a app and which was developed in-house, a partnership between finance or rather planning, which I head, our IT team and our procurement team. And what we did is people across the different mandis, they could transact with each other the latest information, while we sitting at the HO or would have access to all the information. And so that made the process of procurement far more efficient. To share with you, earlier this entire process was done on WhatsApp, which was not a very efficient process because there were time lags and whole lot of things. But this became a sort of a live database which enabled us to improve the efficiency of the procurement much more. The second one was again a more specific COVID induced, while the first one was in general the process which got accelerated. This was with respect to collection of old bottles. Now, for most of our brands, we actually use, we recycle our bottles. That's also good from a sustainability point of view and from an environment point of view, as we all know. Now, the challenge was earlier our procurement for these old bottles was from third-party agents, and that's how the industry worked. But now this was a typical situation where, and they used to rather procure it from the bars and the food establishments. Now with these being closed, the entire supply chain was sort of cut off. So again, then we came up with another sort of a model where we actually connected with the last leg of the supply chain, which is the restaurants and the bars, and got the information directly from them, passed on the information to our third-party vendors. And so it was like actually going beyond the scope of your operations and enabling your vendor to deliver better services to you. And there again, technology played a big role. The third, but not the least, is what we did in the field of sales. We already have Salesforce Analytics as a tool, and which we had. While we were discussing, I think Tanmay mentioned about the coolers and the tagging of the coolers. Well, we've gone actually one step forward. While the tagging of the coolers are there were also other inbuilt devices in the coolers which actually informed us the temperature of the coolers, and that helped us big time to do better customer services. For the simple reason, what most outlets used to do at night, they used to switch off the cooler to to save on the electricity cost. But then we negotiated with them. We paid certain of their fixed charge, but ensured that the coolers are operational so that the customer gets the best product. That is a chilled bottle of beer every time he walks into the store. And these were all integrated as a part of our SFA. But what we also did during the time of COVID, since the Salesforce was not able to go to the market, they had the tabs and other things, and they had established the links with the outlets. So although they were working from home, but those 2 months, they were not really out of market. They were in communication with the retailers through technology. And this was actually a very big thing because, again, the safety of employees is paramount for us as an organization and value system which we proudly cherish. So we, although logically speaking, the Salesforce could have gone back to the market in the month of May when the lockdown was lifted on 4th of May, but we consciously took a call that till June, the Salesforce did not go back to the market given this very volatile scenario. And what enabled us to do the customer servicing is sort of these tools which I'm talking about. So effectively, although the Salesforce did not go to the market, but the customer or the trade did not feel their absence, and we were able to satisfy their needs.
You got it. No, really helpful, sir. Really helpful. Maybe I think with one last question to Mr. Bharat. After that, we can open for a Q&A. Mr. Bharat, I think we talked about digital, then analytics. I'm going to connect the last question of analytics to you, right? So the machine learning, deep learning, I mean, everyone is evolving into the advanced analytics setup, right? So the platform like a Zoho, so can we leverage? So let's say if I don't know anything about ML, DL, let's assume, right? I'm a company wanted to leverage analytics and advanced analytics. Would these kind of a platform help us to kind of leverage easily? Just want to get a quick sense so that I think it can be a quick learning for a lot of people in the audience. Yeah.
That is possible. So we should, I mean, now a lot of us use these terms like data lake and other things, right? So we should be clear in terms of what are we looking at for analytics. If it's just simple reporting, if it's at a tactical level, that is still regular analytics. But if it's a part of the core operations, if it's at a decision-making level, maybe that is slightly evolved and you look at AI and ML and other tools. Right? So coming back to your question in terms of application development itself, players in this low-code space, including us, look at the whole ADLM cycle, application development lifecycle management. So it's not just build one application, look at the complete end-to-end, how will multiple people collaborate, how will it be used, how will it be maintained, governance and all that. And AI and ML definitely play an important part. So if I have to give some example, let's say you want to include a prediction field. Let's say there is or let's say easy to understand, sentiment analysis. You have, in fact, Samsonite uses this. So let's say you are running a set of retail stores. You have 500 retail stores. They collect feedback from their customers on how was the experience, right? Now, obviously, you may not be able to manually go through it and or categorize it saying positive, good, bad, and all that, which is where this sentiment analyzer will come in. What it will do is it will read the text in that particular field and tell you that yesterday of all the sales that have happened, 70% of the customer feedback is positive. Very, very crudely put, let's say you go to Amazon to order something. When you are looking at the reviews on top, there are certain simple icons, right? It just highlights the keywords like value for money, easy returns, and all that. Like that, if you want to implement it for your line of business, without even knowing how the AI/ML algorithms work. So let's say, for example, at the backend, it may run, let's say, a fuzzy logic or whatever algorithm that is based out of. But as a developer, I don't have to be exposed to that. I'll just say I want to use, let's say, a pattern recognizer or a prediction field or a sentiment analyzer. Those are available as a user field, like how you create a text field in an Excel. These are available for the users in multiple platforms, including Zoho Creator. These are available as AI/ML fields in drag and drop itself. So without even the user knowing the AI/ML algorithms and logic, or without even getting into that, users can make use of these fields. And we are seeing increased adoption to fields like this, including, let's say, in logistics space, based on, let's say, on the text recognizer, right? When someone scans, what is the feedback that we get, converting that to insight. Those are use cases that we see getting adopted.
Thanks, Bharat. That is really helpful. I think very good discussion, right? So thanks to all the experts. Probably we'll open the forum for next maybe 7-8 minutes. Unfortunately, I couldn't see any question in the Q&A as of now. That's why I kind of extended the discussion. But any question from audience, maybe we can take some 3-4 key question, maybe a short answer. Any question somebody wanted to ask, or you want to kind of use the Q&A platform to kind of type, please do so. I saw one question, Mr. Sanjay Avasti, I think he has left, I believe, but I saw the question, which is, what is the biggest challenge to implement digitalization of supply chain? I think, Mr. Mrinal, you already explained very well. I think a lot of people actually talk about digitalization of supply chain, but if anyone want to kind of share any thoughts, what is the biggest challenge to implement digitalization of supply chain? I think another question has come, how to start digitalization? So maybe I'll just, Mr. Mrinal, I think I probably start with you, right? Somebody asked a question, how to start, where's the starting point for a digitalization?
Dr. Ganesh, if I may come in from an industry perspective, from a manufacturing industry perspective, I think the entire process of this starts from a definition of a crisis statement. I mean, what is the problem you are trying to solve? Because the biggest challenge for an organization is if you just want to jump onto the bandwagon of digitalization just because it's a cool thing to do or others are doing it, the chances are you will fall miserably. You will have a huge investment and you will not be able to reap any benefits. So rather than define a starting point, look at your problem definition in the first place, explore all options, and then you come to a solution for which digitization may be a solution. But don't start it the other way around. Don't start with the solution in mind. Start with the problem in mind. That's the point which I would highlight.
Well said, Mr. Sandeep. I mean, that's a good indication. Anyone else want to add any viewpoint? Where to start and what are the challenges in digitalization? Any thoughts?
If I say a few words on this,
Yeah, please.
Let me give an example. If you see, nearly one and a half year now, almost all the websites moved into a chatbot solution. Almost all financial institutes, they moved to a chatbot solution. You have a bot, Mr. Sandeep has a bot, so I also need to have a bot. Without any thought that whether my customer is educated for a bot, knows how to use it. So exactly the example of Mr. Sandeep, what is given, that's most important. It is not that what we think of. It is not that what my competition is doing, I need to just replicate that. Yes, there's a lot of learning from the competition so that I don't do the same failure or same mistakes. But you need to hear to your customer first that what he wants. The customer can be an external customer. The customer can be an internal customer. What exactly you want? If he wants a process automation, you start from there. It doesn't mean you bring an RPA vendor and get tag along. That's very easy to do. But have you understood the process? Which process my CFO wants to automate? Do I know that? Does it have a document management system automation? Does it have an AIAP automations? If you have those questions clear, both from your internal and external, and you keep away yourself, you mean the CIO or the IT head or the process head, you keep away from the solution and think that what kind of process automation he is looking for, what kind of digitization journey I want to give it to my customer, talking to my sales director or my CX director, that would be the starting point.
It makes sense.
You don't get into a webinar and learn something from Mrinal or Sandeep and go back and start. First, to ask yourself what your customer wants, and if you are a customer yourself of that particular product, what you would have asked for. It starts from there. Then automatically vendor, process, people comes along, and I think anyone can have a good digital journey. This is my say.
No, fantastic, sir. No, well said. Well said. Any other questions from the audience? Quickly, any questions? Riaz, I think it's the audience can unmute and talk, right? If anyone want to talk also, any feedback or any comments, anyone from audience want to share? Not about only the question, right? So anyone, I think, wanted to share some of the comments and feedback also, you're welcome. Riaz, you probably have to unmute the audience if required. Yeah. If somebody wanted to.
The participant can raise their hand, so I can unmute them.
Very good. Yeah, please do that. If somebody want to really pass some comments or any suggestions, you can please raise your hand so that Riaz can unmute you. Or any questions also, please put on the table. One question has come. Maybe I think how fluctuation of demand can be controlled by digitalization, right? So I think it's more of how do we control demand, how do we control demand variability. I think anyone specifically wanted to answer?
Yeah, I can share with you our experience in this, and I touched upon it a little while ago that for us, the peak season got sort of wiped off by COVID. So the entire thing fell flat. Now, what happened in the terms of digitalization, what enabled us to plan our supplies better is when we go back to our suppliers. Now, typically any negotiation with a supplier is primarily on two accounts. One is the credit, the other is the quantity. Quality and other things remaining equal because that's given. Now, typically in this problem where your demand variability is huge, then the quantity varies and no prizes for guessing the if you've committed to buy 100 units from a vendor at a particular price and you reduce it to 80, the price negotiations becomes difficult. So what we use this analytical tool is actually to do a long-term view, and we primarily believe that beer is a low penetrated product, so it has that potential going back after the crisis. Be transparent with our vendors in terms of our plans, and then for their existing contracts, sort of have a rollover, so that in the long run they don't miss out, and in the short run they don't also have to bear the pains, and it could be a win-win strategy for both. So that's how, in terms of variability, I think our forecasting tools enabled us to draw up a long-term plan, share it with our vendors, and avert the crisis. That's our experience in this entire pandemic.
No, thanks a lot, Mr. Sandeep. That is helpful. Anyone want to share any quick thoughts? Maybe with that we can probably come to a conclusion. I don't see any specific other doubts. Probably with this question I can conclude.
All I want to say is that this is, although we have been talking about the digital supply chain and agile supply chain are two concepts which I think are something which is to be taken more seriously. People need to invest more in terms of digitalization of the supply chain, so that you are able to get information and then you are able to manage these disruptions.
Very good. Well said. I think thanks to CII for organizing this fantastic event at this COVID time. Very, very relevant and very need of the hour event, right? So I think definitely I think a lot of participants and audience would have got benefited from the discussion what we had. I think thanks to each and every expert who actually participated in this last 2-hour discussion. It was a very fantastic, rich discussion. So I think we had a very good points covered in this particular event. So well said. So I think any specific question you can actually write to Riyaz, and maybe the presentation also can be shared to Riyaz. You will get those. And Riyaz, Dr. Bhanumati, any closing thoughts from your side? I think with this probably can conclude. Thanks everyone. So thanks to Mr. Mrinal, Mr. Bharat, Mr. Piyush, Mr. Tanmay, and Mr. Sandeep.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Ganesh, for doing this so eloquently well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think we will all meet in some other good event, and definitely I think bring some more value addition through CII to the greatest community. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Riyaz and Dr. Bhanumati, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you. Bye. All the best.